Welcome to Season 5 of Silver Lining for Learning, Episode 192. I'm one of the co-hosts, Kurt Bong from Indiana University. By the way, it's Episode 192 is hypothetically speaking, what if the entire world had connected camps in Minecraft? The other co-hosts with us today are Dr. Chris Steedy from Harvard, along with Yang Zhao, sometimes at the University of Kansas and sometimes the University of Melbourne or other parts of the world. And we also have with us Dr. Punya Mishra from ASU, the Innovation Hub for Technology and Education for the World. And he's actually our big innovator for this show. He'll put together the video at the end. We have with us people from Illinois. Not only that, Champaign, Illinois.
ILL.
Everyone in this episode, on this podcast today, we're either living in Champaign, Illinois, or Milwaukee, Wisconsin, because Chris and I were in Milwaukee guys, so we have a little competition with the Flatlanders. But hypothetically speaking, what if the entire world had connected camps in Minecraft? We have with us Chad Lane, who's in the EdPsych department, which is the top competitor for Wisconsin in terms of EdPsych rankings, along with Stanford. Chad is really interested in not only computer science, but informal educational settings where kids are engaged in technology experiences. He's been running a summer camp for kids in Minecraft for a couple of years, and he'll be talking about that today. He's along with his compadre, Jeff Ginger, is from the Department of EdPsych and adjunct in the School of Information Science at the University of Illinois as well. Jeff and Chad have been exploring Minecraft for a number of years. They'll be describing that along with their funding. They also have with them a undergraduate, Kobe Duda, who will be describing his experiences in Minecraft and how it led him to major in computer science. So Chad, would you like to maybe share a bit more and maybe get, actually, why don't we start with Jeff and Kobe and then go to Chad, because he's got some visuals to show us. So Jeff, why don't you expand a bit about what I said about your summer camp and connected camps in Minecraft?
Yeah, and we can toss back and forth between Chad and I. think he's got pictures queued up. What I had done here is I loaded up the game. So for those that are not familiar, Minecraft is one of the most popular games in the world. It's been out for a long time. So long, in fact, that it's shaped the lives of a lot of kids growing up. Kobe is sort of one of the people that is an example of that. He's been gracious enough to join us today. But Chad and I have also been working with kids for a long time. And the way this unfolded into my life is I was actually doing my dissertation and studying kids in a makerspace at a library, and they were playing Minecraft. And that ended up becoming a thing where like I learned how to play the game with the kids, and they made their own server. And this then turned into camps at the fabrication laboratory, the Fab Lab I was running. And that's where then Chad and I got to pilot this idea of what if kids could make worlds that they couldn't visit? What if kids could do these really crazy like alien exoplanets or like what if Earths? And that's how then Chad met Neil Commons or worked with Neil Commons to come up with this idea. But I think what I could maybe do here is share screen for like a brief minute and show some of like what the server looks like. We have this server that's going all the time. And the kids will participate in camps, but you can actually join from home. So anybody that's listening, you can go to whimsy.org, WHIMC.org, and there's an address there. And if you have Java Edition Minecraft, you can actually join the server and look around at some of the stuff that we're doing. And let me see if I can get this going. I'm going to attempt to share a screen where it is visually fluid, and then I'm going to describe it like voices in movies, like descriptive voice in movies. So hopefully that'll work here. All right. Okay, are you guys able to see some of this?
Looks good.
Okay. So when kids first join the server, they actually start out on Earth and they have to like learn what it's like to be an astronaut, and they talk to different people at a sort of a NASA place. And that's an important piece for them to understand that it's not just astronauts that work in NASA. Lots of people have STEM jobs. But eventually what they get to do is then go to do training on the moon. And so there's this missions that they get. And I'm a controller on the server, so I have powers. So not everything is going to work exactly right. But for instance, they could look up and they see the Earth in the sky, and they instantly know they're on the moon. And they talk to these people, and these people give them different quests to do. And they get to go suit up and get in a spacesuit. And this is also a thing that seems kind of obvious to us, but a lot of kids don't realize that the moon has no air. You know, the sci-fi movies don't always illustrate that very well. And as they're going through this, they then get put in a spacesuit. I don't know how well you can see this here. They can either they're in a spacesuit protected. I don't have a helmet on. I should put on my helmet. But anyway, they would have one that
Yeah,
would on.
that's a good idea, Jeff.
Yeah, right. We don't simulate what happens when you go into a vacuum without a spacesuit. Anyway, when they get out here, they can jump around, and there's lower gravity on the surface of the moon. And I'm just gonna fly really quickly over here, but you can kind of see they're in this cool lunar crater environment, and they talk to all these characters who help them understand the different things you would need to survive on the moon. And so there's a giant habitat. That building's full of like 3D printing stuff. They have like the supplies one over here. I've switched myself to a spectator mode now. There's a greenhouse, and below this, like things like mushrooms and stuff that they would survive with. We have like a workout gym here. So they learn about the different elements of survival on the moon, and they then go to these different what if worlds. So if we're still okay on time, I'm going to go ahead and go to one here. Oops, I have to type the name right. Hold on. So normally when we're in a camp, there's like curriculum, and there's between times of the worlds, they're learning about the worlds, and they work with each other on different things. But this one is one where it's a mystery. So they go to this world and they don't know what it is. And at this point, they've already explored several what if Earths and learned about the kinds of things you might care about. But they look up in the sky and they see this lit ring, and they don't know what is this giant thing. But on the very edges there, you can kind of see the light. And what that is actually an eclipse. And they have to then collect some data. And let's see if I can. Here they start out with some lava, so I'm showing them they can't get hurt by the lava. But I'll show some examples of this. So if I type /temperature, they can do things like this, and it's telling me it's very hot on this world. And around me, you can see all this volcanic activity. And look at this, there's this giant gas giant in the sky, and that might remind you of something. And so the kids then, as they're going along doing this, they will do things like type observations. So they observe giant planet in the sky, and that pops up this little observation. And other kids can see these observations, and this is part of what we've been using as our data collection, is we see what the kids observe, how they observe, and we built all kinds of things off that, like things to understand how much they're comprehending, but also stuff like AI models, where it will actually give a response. We have a little robot that runs around, takes a picture of what they looked at, and then gives feedback based on what they wrote. And then finally, they go to the other side of the planet. And at this point, they have probably accumulated enough data to figure out that this scenario is Earth as a moon. And it looks pretty different. There's a museum over here that actually, let's see if I can get to it quickly. There's a museum over here that kind of demonstrates, here we go, Earth as a moon of a giant gas giant, and all the effects that that would have. And there's all kinds of other crazy stuff too. I'll just show this one really quickly. They get to visit some exoplanets. So, and we had to actually have a scientist on the team figure out the color of the atmosphere in real life for TRAPPIST, which is one that like they had to do a bunch of data processing. And then they'll even be able to go to things like, let's go to pillars. We had a student, Chris Layton in California, made a bunch of these Minecraft universe worlds, and he's actually given us these, and you guys might recognize this as the pillars of creation. They can visit these different like universe kind of scale worlds, and I can even type scale here, and it's 0.006 light years per block for the size that I am in this world. So you can go very big or very small. So that's all I'm going to show there, because I know we want to get to be able to talk about all this stuff. But hopefully that gives some of the people a sense of like what all's on the server and what you can do with it.
Muted
Chad?
there. That was a wonderful tour. Kobe, would you like to comment on it before we go to Chad and introduce yourself?
Yeah, I can share a little bit of my story. So yeah, I grew up playing Minecraft as a kid. And I'll say I was a kid with a little bit of an overactive imagination. I enjoyed, playing football and stuff on the program or on the playground, but a lot of my time was spent playing like, ninjas and stuff and a lot of make-believe games. So I had a lot of ideas, things I wanted to do. So when I found out you could kind of like just do things, whatever you want, make whatever you want in Minecraft if you just use these commands, I was like a kid in a candy store. And what it really led to was just this whole I guess like path of me learning programming just because I wanted to make cool things. And Minecraft was kind of a vehicle for me learning computer science and actually a lot of other things too. Like an example is last summer, my kind of personal project was working on a little like grappling hook. And there's a lot of physics and stuff that goes into that. And I'm taking a dynamics class this past semester, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, wait, this is the exact math I did for for my grappling hook. So it's over time I've learned a lot of these different concepts, like binary search or like things like that, just because I want to make something cool in Minecraft. So I've seen like throughout my life how this process of like trying to express things creatively has allowed me to actually like it's been an educational tool for me. So then when one day Jeff reaches out to me and he's like, "Hey, I got we're basically using Minecraft to like educate kids on things." I'm like, "Holy crap. Like this is exactly what I've been doing my whole life." Um and yeah, it's just been such a blessing to be able to like be a part of this team and like be able to contribute and use my skills to like actually help kids learn new things. And yeah, I really can't wait to see like, what the future holds for these kind of projects.
You've hit on a lot of topics right there and interest areas of both Young and Punya in terms of creativity and Chris in terms of immersive worlds and physics and all sorts of things. So I'm sure they have questions for you, but we need to go to Chad first. And Chad, if you do have a couple of visuals to show, but we've seen a lot. So if you have a couple of things that are important we need to see, you can share your screen, introduce yourself or reintroduce yourself, Chad.
Thanks, Kurt. Yeah, and just to, there was so, like you said, there's so much that was just shared. And, one of the things that I love about Kobe's involvement in our project is Jeff is keeps track of what's happening in the Minecraft, community, which is enormous. And found this guy on YouTube sharing his work. And the when we figured out he was a University of Illinois student, we were so excited and we reached out, and now Kobe's been on the team for well over a year now, bringing really incredible contributions. So yeah, so I'm a professor of educational psychology and computer science. So I think a lot about the uses of artificial intelligence and technology in general to promote STEM learning. And this focus on Minecraft actually started a long time ago with my son. My son is currently a student at the Missouri University of Science and Technology in Rolla, and he's played Minecraft his whole life, a lot like Kobe. And he would have, this is back 2009, 2010 when he was a middle school or late elementary, and he'd bring friends over, and I would just sit and watch. I observed them taking roles and having tasks to complete, and all the STEM connections to this game just instantly got my attention. So they became my little experts. They didn't know it, but I was learning from them, and they loved to explain it. So those combination of things made me intrigued by Minecraft and more broadly by sandbox games, which are defined as games where there aren't really structured goals. If you haven't, I recommend the Minecraft episode of South Park because it points out how different this game is. There just aren't really any goals. You create your own goals and you go do these things that are all connected to other things that you have to really figure it out, and it's open ended, and that excited me. And then the second piece that led to this Whimsy project was when I met Professor Neil Cummins at the University of Maine many years ago, who's one of our nation's top astronomers, has written the second most popular textbook for astronomy. But he wrote many books, including two that were titled "What If the Earth Had No Moon?" and "What If the Earth Had Two Moons?" And in these books, he's explored these alternative versions of Earth and fleshed out all the science behind what they would be like to live on. And so all kinds of interesting things happen. If you take away the moon, for example, it kind of acts like a brakes on the Earth's rotation. So the rotation would spin to about 2.7 times the speed, which would create all kinds of wind. The mountains would be smoother. If trees could exist on this version of Earth, they'd be wider and stronger. Birds would be more muscular. So anyway, we took all of this. We started collaborating with Neil. He was our expert, and we built these out. I went to Neil. I said, what if we could do more than just talk about these hypothetical worlds? We could let kids go walk around on the surface and see things and make observations about how they're different. And then we could talk to them about why they're different. What are the scientific, principles at play here? So that's how this project started. And it turned into 3 awards from NSF. So I want to give NSF a lot of credit here for when the review panels that saw the promise in this work. So that's kind of how it all started. And then I want to also share a little bit of the research because I'm an educational psychology researcher and computer scientist, and I think about how technology can promote sort of deep conceptual understanding and STEM. And our research frame is all around the development of interest. So we follow Ann Renninger and Suzanne Heady's work on interest development, which is really wonderful, remarkable work. And, in a nutshell, everything that we found in the analysis we've done is in line with their theory. So it's interest grows along with knowledge and engagement, and that turns into deeper engagement. So it kind of feeds itself after a while. And we see this in their camps, even just for a week. We see kids, it's just snowballing, and they get into the tasks that they're given. They build these habitats to survive on these crazy worlds, and they have to think through everything they'll need. And so all of our research, and we could talk about it if you're interested, is really compatible with what Ringer and Heedy have established for us. And the whole goal is, if I were to just boil it down to what we're trying to do, is to get kids excited for STEM and engineering and science and just whatever they're drawn to give them opportunities to explore those ideas and dive in very deeply with them. And Minecraft just happens to be a playful, collaborative, very social place to do that. And it already has a massive community. So Jeff showed you kind of the hands-on Minecraft experience, and so I just want to show you. And some people, aren't sure, like, okay, you're just going to have kids play Minecraft the whole time, and that's not what we believe in. We believe in really rich, multi-dimensional learning experiences that go beyond just the gameplay. So I kind of want to show you the context of what we're doing. We talk about real science. So what you're seeing is a picture of a visiting scholar from Turkey who was with us as a Fulbright scholar. His name's Omer, and I'll butcher his last name, Omer Daily Aglu. And Omer's a dear friend, and he spent a year with us and helped with the summer camps. But you're seeing him explain, how orbits work and gravitational pull of different planetary bodies. And so he came in and helped us a lot on the camps. But this is also, I want to give a shout out to one of our primary community partners is the Urbana Neighborhood Connection Center that provides kids a space for learning after schools and summer programs. And they go all the way from outdoor sporting activities to math support. And then we've been doing our summer camps there for over 5 years, where we touch on astronomy and engineering and astrophysics and all kinds of cool things. And just some close-ups of kids working on the computers that we bring, and they have their own computers too that we use. And so there's this classroom component. This is Neil Cummins talking through some of the astronomy components of our curriculum. And so we don't just play Minecraft. You can see this is what we call lids down. So we have to have the lids down at certain times, and it actually turns into really good conversations, and we get to hear some of the kids' amazing questions that they ask. We don't stay in the room, we go outside. This is Jeff leading a rocket activity, so we talk about what it takes to get to space and the design of rockets. So that's always exciting. One of those at one point flew up and hit one of the cars in the neighborhood, and we all were worried we were in trouble. So that was fun. We talk about all these important ideas that Jeff brought up. And so this is just some of the signage that we create, and talking about how planets are, what parts of planets are relevant to survival, and how they come to form in the first place. Here we are outside measuring wind speed and temperature and humidity. So they can do all of these things in our Minecraft worlds, but we have a concrete foundation for what Earth is like now where they live. So we go out there, they have these little cards that show the radiation that's coming from the sun. As you all know, radiation is one of the major threats. So here they are showing the radiation that they're exposed to just outside on the playground. And here's one of my favorite pictures of Neil. This is in Maine, where we also run some camps. We found a leaf blower. So the kids wanted to know, well, how fast is that leaf blower? So that device told them the wind speed. He's pointing that leaf blower at the wind, the tool that measures wind speed. So the kids loved that. More Minecraft shots. You can just see the richness of the worlds we built for kids to explore. They get to invent exoplanets to make up their own. So what this is a worksheet that Jeff devised to get them to think about all the important aspects of an exoplanet that all point to, could humans live there? We want to know, is there another Earth out there, and what's it going to take for humans to live on them someday? So we brainstorm, and what's amazing is that there are I forget the number, but there are, millions of exoplanets out there for each human on Earth. So the one they create might actually exist somewhere in the universe, which is kind of exciting to think about. The last thing I want to highlight is our collaboration with NOVA. So NOVA Labs is an important part of the Nova group at PBS, and they create online interactive learning experiences for kids. And so we worked with them and a set of exoplanet scientists that they found that are all rock stars. We actually put them into the Minecraft worlds too. But kids here can go learn about how we detect exoplanets. So that's easy to find, and any teachers online can search for the Nova Exoplanet Lab, and it's a wonderful, about an hour-long activity where it's not Minecraft, it's just playable immediately on the web, and you can learn about how scientists find exoplanets. So I'll hand it back to you, Kurt, on that, but that's the overview of what we're doing.
So a quick
Thanks,
comment,
Chad.
Chad, before just a quick comment. So what you did watching your kids, that's a long tradition in psychology and education developmental psychology, going all the way back to Piaget, watching his own kids and developing his theories. So just a quick comment there. So yeah. Anyway, Kurt, go on.
Sure. So, I appreciate the reference to Reminger and Heidi. I got intrigued with her work maybe a quarter century ago from hearing her speak at AERA. And just this past semester, I had a number of students citing that work and referring back to it. After a lapse, I hadn't heard about it in a long time, and it seems to be picked up again. A normal question I ask in these sessions is, what was the theoretical underpinning, or what principles are you underpin the project? And you've already answered that, so I won't have any questions for you this hour.
Well, let me add one little piece, because I just saw Anne last week, and we talk about this work a lot. She was an advisor for us, and one of the pieces that's, I think, unique in the world of interest development is we have a back end on our server that Jeff can tell us more about how it works, but it collects very fine-grained interaction data about how kids are building, what they're exploring, the areas on the maps where they spend the most time. When they're off task, we see a lot of things like hide and seek, and different interesting things that just kids do. And we don't rule that out. We let them have some time like that. But anyway, this fine-grained data, we've been working hard to connect it to the theoretical models and using it to predict engagement and interest. And so that fine-grained data is something we don't see a lot of in the world of interest research. So we're very excited about its potential, predictive potential, and it's I always wondered if parents had a bunch of data from how their kids are playing Minecraft, could they talk to them about mechanical engineering later that day, or chemistry, or how those activities connect up to these bigger scientific questions?
I also like your idea of no goals. I'm intrigued about that, and maybe later you can talk about it. Before Young asks this question, what year was the inception of this project?
What year was that, Jeff, when we got some of the high school students from the Fab Lab? 2016, 2017?
Yeah, it's a little fuzzy because the Fab Lab camps kind of merge into it, but 2016 is what I get.
It's taking about 6, 7, 8 years to get to this point. Okay.
Yeah, we had a couple of our first grant wasn't awarded, but we've fixed it, and then we got our exploratory grant, and then that turned into a larger one that was what supported us for the last 4 or 5 years.
Great. Young,
we're still going.
Oh yeah.
Well, so this is great. First of all, so my questions, really, I have a bunch of questions. I didn't even know which one to ask. So the first one is that we know if you turn a game into educational, typically people lose interest. No matter how good the game is, right? People saying, heck, I just want to play the game, which I think has a lot to do with autonomy and agency. So I was just wondering, Chad and Jeff and Kobe and you guys, of course, you added other activities, camps. So when you turn this really into educational, did any children lose interest? They were just here. I'm here. I'm just playing the damn game. Why do you want me to do that? So I was just wondering, curious about that process. I'm sure Chris, I can add more. When you design anything, Punya and I, we did try to do gaming, a long time ago. And when students lose that autonomy and to make decisions on their own, they could lose interest. And of course, you could be bringing more students, give them more interest. And I just was wondering if you've observed that.
Well, it's a great question, and I'm very eager to hear Jeff and Kobe's thought on this. But I do have a claim that I can make that I think that directly addresses that. But I'll first say, historically, those of us in this field, and I know Chris has had many cases like this, and if we build something brand new, our task then is to take it to kids and convince them it's worth their time to engage with, and we have to hope that whatever we built will be interesting to them. And that is absolutely one way to go when you're building educational technologies. We took in this project, and again, I've done lots of work like that. In this project, we took a very different approach. We said, because we thought about building something new for what if worlds, we go to Unreal or whatever and build it all out. We said, why don't we go where the kids already are? And that's Minecraft. The statistics on Minecraft play are astonishing. The number of kids who play this, or at least have played it, even if they haven't played, and we've had a few in our camps, they know a lot about it already. So we kind of went where they were, and we started to mold that environment in ways that would nudge them towards science. So that was the approach we took. So we get a little bit of credibility already because we're in their space. We're in a world that they already exist in and like. So the question becomes, by giving these science goals, do they then disengage? And I think our answer there is one thing about Minecraft culture that is true is that everybody likes to show off. Kobe can confirm this. Everybody likes to say, look what cool thing I did. Oh, yeah, that's really cool. Here's the cool thing I did. So there is this idea of kind of everybody's creating, everybody's sharing, everybody's trying to outdo each other, but in a very friendly way. There's not a lot of toxicity in the Minecraft world like a lot of video games. And so we've kind of just said, hey, we're going to build these radically crazy worlds that you've never seen and let you go explore them. So they're novel. The kids have never seen anything like this. Jeff was going fast, but I want to go back and mention when we dialed down the gravity on the moon, kids had never seen that before. So when they could jump and they would jump a lot further and things were a little slower, that got their attention because it's different from what they're used to, and they loved it. So anyway, those are my two responses, and I'm going to claim that Minecraft is unique in this way compared to all other games out there, that this is a unique culture that's been created over the last decade, and we've just directly tried to leverage that.
I'll just add quickly because I want to hear Kobe's take too. So it's almost, you're taking a fun game that wasn't intentionally educational, like they kind of knew, tacitly maybe, but and turning that into an educational platform. Now that's become formalized. Like there is Minecraft Education Edition, and then they now just call it Minecraft Education. The Microsoft hooked into that. But in the early days of the game, that wasn't really the concept. The other thing I will say about it is that it's become so big that I think it can mean a lot of things. So you talk to and this is why a lot of parents are really confused, is they're like, my kid plays Minecraft, but actually there's 100 flavors of Minecraft and a lot of things you can do with it. And so that's the neat part of it, is people create all different mods and versions and all this. And some of them are more educational than others. You can definitely play Minecraft where all you do is kill zombies all day. And and this is why, one thing that I love seeing is when parents play games with their kids. I remember growing up, that was really taboo. None of the parents ever played any of the games with my crew of kids growing up. But now all of my friends that are raising kids, I see them do that all the time, and they get to better understand, oh, this is what this thing is. This is what this thing can be. And that's kind of what this project was. As the kids at the library were getting into real life fights over stealing each other's diamonds, and I go in and figure out the game, and it's really, we just need to shape the experience. And when you start curating it and giving it purpose a little bit, you can change what it means and what it does. But I will also say that not all kids in our camps love Minecraft. We're doing summer camps, so it's informal ed, which I love because kids opt into it. But that we also get kids that maybe their parents think they like Minecraft and they sign them up and they don't really want to be there. It's not always a win. One thing that is really great though is it's almost never do I run into a kid that doesn't know how to control the game in the computer. And this just kind of happened. We did a demo with our team internally a couple of days ago. And a lot of our folks were like, wait, how do I move? The sort of interacting in a 3D environment is something that most kids have just picked up, and not through school. We don't have standards that teach this. They've picked it up through doing fun game stuff. And that's my intersection on the scholarly side, is I'm in digital literacy. And I'm interested in a lot of how we don't have standards for them in a lot of places, and they're not consistent, and they're really predictive of outcomes in society. And so I could rant on that, but anyway, so hopefully that answers your question of not all kids are interested. A lot of them are because they don't realize that it's an education thing. The second we start making them do tons of surveys, they They start thinking, oh, this feels like school and a test. And the biggest thing that when other people are like, oh, there are better simulation environments, why are you using Minecraft? The biggest thing that it does well, that in my opinion is building. Is kids love to build and create. And I'm hugely into constructivism. And a lot of school is like, read this, take this test. There's people are still stuck on empty vessel, a lot of them. And Minecraft is so far from that. And I love that piece of it. So, okay, that's my rant. Kobe, please, and everyone else.
So just like from my perspective, because I deal a lot more with like the design side of things, than like, understanding all the educational aspects of it. And for me, it's just kind of I've seen it as a matter of just like making it fun. Like I think there's a tendency for educational things to not be fun, and that's why like we see that pattern of like, you try to make a game educational, then kids lose interest is a lot of time it's just like plainly not fun. And I just like having experience like from having like having a lot of personal projects in the past where I'm trying to make things fun. I've actually been trying to apply a lot of those skills I've learned like to what I make here. So a lot of that actually comes down to things like just like giving a bit of character to the thing, like I guess the camps that you're designing. Like one of the systems, the main system I've been working on lately is like a sort of like block-based coding thing, and it's a little robot that you have to try to like navigate through some course. And like things I've been doing is like giving it cute faces and like little expressions. When it wins, it'll like kind of dance around a little bit and be happy, and if it loses, then it'll kind of spark and stuff. And I haven't been to the camps personally, but from what I've heard from Jeff and Chad, that like the kids really like this stuff. Like it gets them engaged. Just giving it personality. Oh yeah, and just got it on the screen right now. That like if you, I guess in what you're designing, if you give it some degree of like personality, I don't know, the kids like that. If you are making fun objectives for them to actually seek after instead of just making formatting it like it's school, you can still have that educational aspect while like maintaining that engagement.
I was just showing some footage of some of the puzzle courses we do with BarrelBot, which is a learn to program interface that Kobe made.
Thank you, guys. It's fun. I think Chris may have a question. Chris, go ahead.
Well, of course, there's a long tradition behind this of constructionism. Seymour Papert was sort of the godfather of constructionism, and making is under that big tent, and lots of other interesting kinds of digital textiles, and just a huge array, scratch of interesting things that have been developed. And I think that there's no question that a subset of kids really get a lot from this, and that it excites them in a way that conventional schooling doesn't. I think we've got now, pretty much 4 decades of research. We also have 4 decades of research that constructionism is not a universal, promoter of learning, in the same way that nothing else is a universal promoter of learning. And in particular, Papert was very adamant about constructionism being unguided. And as far as he was concerned, Logo could never fail, because if it failed, you just weren't implementing it right. It was impossible to prove that Logo would fail in Seymour Papert's mind, because it worked for him. So I'm curious about a couple things. One of them would be, do you have a sense of which kinds of kids really resonate to this, and which kinds of kids maybe struggle, especially with the unguided parts of it? And then a kind of follow-on question would be, have you experimented with ways that you can create an ecosystem of learning where some kids are maybe the Minecraft builders, but other kids have useful roles within the learning ecosystem that don't involve making or building or being programming or being unguided, but that nonetheless create a learning community and allow this to be generalized beyond just the subset? You're welcome to disagree with any of these statements, but this is how I want to frame it and see how you respond to it.
Sure. Thanks, Chris. And that history is one that, is just so important. And I feel like, Minecraft has helped those of us on the educational research side sort of keep that tradition going in a way that's highly relevant to kids growing up. And so it's been exciting to think of it through those lenses, and see what it looks like in today's, video game, cultures. So about which kids? So one thing about, we are largely in the informal space here, and it's not that Minecraft has a huge role in formal spaces too. So we have ongoing conversations with Microsoft, with the education edition of Minecraft, and so there are many pieces of this that could certainly fit into formal spaces. But in the informal, one of the things going for us is that it's kids sign up for this. So we already have that subset of kids, which is enormous, who already have positive feelings about Minecraft. So we always fill up our camps. And usually it's sadly, we can't accept all the kids who want to. In Maine, we had probably twice as many volunteer than we could handle. Um, and but from that group, we still get some kids who haven't played much Minecraft, and we've looked at a couple of differences in their incoming experience with Minecraft, and of course demographics and incoming STEM interest. We do some surveys. We convince them often with candy to complete surveys, and one of the things that's really surprised us, but it's actually, I think, a really promising um, observation is that the kids that come in with extremely high Minecraft expertise and interest, so they're interested in Minecraft, they often don't benefit as much from our camps because they are so locked into Minecraft culture. They come in and they want to do the things that they already do, play the game in the ways that they already play, and then the stuff we're trying to convince them to do and explore is secondary to those kind of automatic. So anyway, so the kids who are hardcore Minecraft players often aren't as strong on the science side of things, which is interesting to us. So we love the kids. We love all the kids. We are excited by the kids who come in who kind of like think Minecraft is fun and they've maybe played off and on. They're the ones that seem to benefit the most. So that's one important predictor. We'll find the highly skilled kids will often take on tasks like trying to get around our barrier blocks. So we'll block off certain parts and they want to explore, oh, how can I get around those barrier blocks? Then we have all these cool science things that they can do. They'd rather go and find a way around our barrier blocks, things like that. That we see. So those kids kind of in the middle level of Minecraft experience are usually benefit the most. That's not to say that the ones who play a lot won't come around. And when we start building, they certainly get into it and they think about creative ways to have power sources to create warmth on the colder planets, to protect from radiation. There are certainly examples, but the ones who get into the most are those kids with the middle level of Minecraft experience. Then your second question about different roles. When we get into the later part of the camp, the last 2 to 2.5 days, where they start planning their habitats and how they're going to protect themselves from, we have checklists and examples for them to look at, how they get power, how they get food, how they get warmth, how they get access to water, entertainment, exercise. They have all these things, medical facilities that they have to think about. They usually will take on roles and they'll say, all right, I'm going to be responsible for this. I haven't seen a single kid yet who doesn't want to build. So that's one way we'll challenge you is I haven't met that kid yet who prefers not to build. But again, that's probably the selection bias of the kids who sign up. But there are many alternative pathways into these activities and they can kind of lock in. Like we get kids who are really interested in the medical side. How do I build a medical bay? What's needed in that? They'll go on search online for the typical things in a medical facility that they need to have on some crazy planet. So we've had a lot of success with them taking on these roles and find personal relevance. We see a lot of like the exercise facilities excite a lot of kids. We've seen basketball courts on the moon and on Mars. And then we get into conversations about, well, you know what the gravity is on Mars, right? You know how high you could jump on Mars. And they get excited, like, oh, I could slam dunk on Mars. So we see a lot of interesting things like that when they're personal, things that are personally meaningful are borne out in the work that they do.
Can I add? I don't want to. I'm seeing nods. Okay. So one thing I want to acknowledge is that in terms of who's participating, there are definitely more boys than girls. That's something we have been working on. We've tackled that in a variety of different ways of like having instructors that are good role models, trying to like just do very large calls for recruitment, and then having a camp be like even boys and girls split. Also, I realize that even just that binary is a thing that is not like one thing that we're seeing at Boulder all the time now is kids asserting different gender identities than their parents assign them. So there's lots of like inclusion questions, and we've been grappling with those. But it's definitely a thing to work on. I would say that while building is huge, also a lot of whimsy is just exploring. You know, you're like wondering about the world, you're imagining. And we do stuff like the drawing activity Chad showed. So there's other kinds of forms of output that's I still would consider that creation, but it's non-digital. And kids tell stories. That's one of the biggest things I think. And something that is like a contention for me with our sort of a philosophical or literature founding to this is that a lot of kids' motivation and interest does appear to be driven by social factors. Like when other kids are into something, another kid is into it, and it kind of compounds and recreates interest. But whether the kind of interest that is categorized often is situational. And like, but whether or not like how deep that goes, how much our culture and our community makes for sustained interest, I think is an open question. And I do think that matters in terms of like who's participating in our camps, is that they create the culture of kids wanting to build and be included and including each other. I would also say that's what sets apart our computer programming thing, is that a lot of computer programming interfaces are like you do the thing that you're forced to do, whereas these kids get to make each other puzzles. That's cool. It's as opposed to like fill out the math worksheet kind of style interaction. Like anytime you get agency in your learning process, I think it's good. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like you're creating the whole world or playing with Legos, but just giving kids power to have agency makes it more relevant often. And then the last thing I'll say is that like another struggle we've had, like we have them make these observations in the game, which are typed. And typing skills vary a lot. Interestingly, kids are better at like navigating the world often than they are like at typing and spelling. And so when we're building systems that are like going to react to them to give them feedback on their typing, if they're bad at typing, that's sort of a problem. So like we've experimented with stuff like, can they talk to the computer? And like based off of their verbal, can we recognize something and do a response? Or like when I'm teaching the kids that are more verbal and less like writing oriented, I try to like call them out in the class to allow them to have that moment there too. So like we are engaged with a lot of different levels of representation and like who it works for and who it doesn't work for. And one person I really want to acknowledge that I don't know if we've mentioned yet today is Matt Gadbury is a PhD student who just did his dissertation on this whole thing, and he's done so much research on this. And like, so if any folks are interested in like sort of the hottest and the latest and some of the biggest amount of data that has been analyzed with it, has been Matt. And he cares about inclusion.
I just hooded him yesterday.
So,
he's hot off the presses with his PhD.
And you have a website with all your publications at it. So if interested graduate students are listening to this episode or anyone else, their website's full of research that they've done by year. So I know Punya has a question or two for you. Punya.
Yeah. So a couple of quick things. Even like Chad, the mention that you made of these kids who are trying to break those barriers, to me, that's actually a great thing because that's what they want to do, right? You know what I mean? This goes back to actually, speaking of UIUC, back to the days of Plato. If you remember that learning system that was designed at UIUC way back when, there's data to show there was a group of kids whose sole purpose was to break the system. Like, how can I answer questions in a way that will make that system sort of stop on its tracks, which requires a kind of ingenuity and thinking, which I think is awesome, right? I mean, so I had like two things. So one was, Kobe, I would love to hear from you a little bit about sort of the learning that's happening there, because I think there's many different kinds of learning that's happening, right? Even the ones who are trying to break the barriers, they're learning something. And then you're also teaching astronomy, you're doing puzzles. So I'd be curious about that. The second thing that struck me is like when you're building this virtual world, this book that's sitting right at my desk. This is by a Sri Lankan science fiction writer called The Salvage Crew. I mean, the author's name is Yudhanjaya Vijayaratne. And this guy's interesting. This novel is interesting because what he did, he built these virtual worlds, and then he would set some parameters and he would use that to take decisions for his storytelling. And so if he had to create an alien planet, he would have the simulation which would create this alien planet, and it would create the weather for the day, the atmosphere, air pressure, what have you. And then he would take his characters and put them on that planet. And so he was using the AI system or whatever planet sort of generating system as an approach to literary creativity. And so I was wondering, like, as you have these students developing these, and you also mentioned, Jeff, that there's the gender issue here as well. I'm wondering whether that's a possibility of taking this as saying that you've built this world, now let's create stories around it. Like, let's build a movie around it rather than it be just to the science of it. Like, the science of it is in, so the way Yuddha is using these systems is using the science to write good stories, right? Nice, gripping novels or whatever. So I'm just curious if about the sort of the broadening the definition of learning, and then taking that creative aspect and pushing it into the arts or filmmaking or literature or something that way. So Kobe, I'll have you start first, and then anybody else wants to jump in.
Yeah, can you mind like restating that first question? Like exactly
so
you're
you
asking?
talked in the very beginning, very briefly, about that learning, that things that you were learning in school was sort of that you were learning through play. I'm curious about that aspect of learning, and then maybe Chad and Jeffrey can talk about the broader aspects of learning and moving into the creative spaces that I sort of brought up as well.
Yeah, okay. So I guess from my perspective, like what I've seen is that like when I have the desire to create something, usually I want to create something that's just outside of like what I'm currently capable of. That's just where my mind tends to reside. And I'll give an example. Like something I've been working on is I'm trying to make interfaces to make it more accessible for kids to be able to create their own puzzles and stuff with this like programming system. And I needed a user interface, and I was trying to set up like to detect where a player clicks on like a like little virtual screen. And I actually had just finished a linear algebra class, and I was able to apply the things I learned in that class for like projecting vectors onto onto this like sort of screen and doing the math behind that. Um, so it's kind of initiated by this like I guess this creative impulse, and then from that I either apply something that I've already learned and it helps me to understand it better, or I have to go out and seek new knowledge. And yeah, that causes me to um, learn something new, and then usually what will end up happening is that I'll like have this thing explained to me in school. I'm like, wait a second, I know this because of Minecraft already. it's it's quite funny when that happens, but that's generally what tends to happen there.
Cool. Yeah, there is a reason why people came up with linear algebra. We often don't reveal that to our students. Anyway, Chad, Jeff.
Yeah, that's a great question because the stories are kind of what make everything memorable, and so we certainly during these camps we share stories of from NASA and of the people who are in NASA and have left marks and had major contributions. In terms of kids generating stories, we don't do that explicitly, but it is a trope in a lot of video games where you are stranded on a planet and you have to figure out how to survive, and that's a very powerful narrative of how are you going to get the resources you need? How will you be safe at night when you sleep? And there's a lot of drama and a lot of risk that you have to overcome, and so we sort of have that a little bit in our experience here because there are things that are kind of quote dangerous on certain worlds. We allow them to fall, so they have to be very careful. Now they just respawn. It's not a traumatic thing, but there is this element of story in the sense of staying safe, surviving, working through difficult problems, and coming out in the end successful. And then we also allow them to present at the end of the week. We put their habitat up on the screen and we let them walk around Minecraft and tell the story of how they built it, who did what, why they designed it in the way they did. There are details here, like they want to build in Minecraft very square, straight lines, and that's actually suboptimal. for say pressure containment. You want spheres and tubes and things that actually hold pressure. So we talk about those things, and even though they're hard to do in Minecraft, you can still kind of get at it. And so you notice the moon base was all, those are all spheres or at least half domes, and those are by design. So we can get into those things, and we can talk about maximizing your chances for survival. And I think under that is that narrative of how do we do this? How do we live? How do we succeed?
I'm just going to briefly add on. So Chad's saying they present at the end. At two of our camps, they present on a planetarium dome to their parents, which is pretty darn cool because you get to fly. Yeah, it's like a 360 view thing. And like we're flying through those cool galaxy worlds. And so a lot of our, that's one of the things I love about informal ed is that you get to be in spaces like planetariums and museums, and like your imagination explodes.
Jeff, that reminds me. Oh yeah, you should mention Fisk. Yeah, mention
that's like where I'm actually, I work for University of Illinois. I'm actually in Colorado working with CU Boulder a lot of the time because they have the planetarium that has been the tie-in for this grant. So which has been really neat that we've been able to be in lots of places. We've got folks in Maine as well. I'm going to openly state I'm a STEAM advocate over STEM. That goes back to my Fab Lab days. I do think art really matters. That's why we have things like drawing. I think it also goes into stuff like roles. And I teach a user experience design class, and I think visual communication is so important. Like academics are really obsessed with writing. The rest of the world uses lots of ways of communicating far more than big blobs of paper. And also I kind of want to say, sometimes narrative is not the right answer. So like, I love Minecraft Education Edition. They have these really cool like hour of code maps and that kind of stuff, but they've also tried to do stuff like they have maps on history. And if you load up one of those, you'll notice like there's a story and you talk to these characters and they tell you a story, but like, I don't think Minecraft's the best environment for that. Like, and I think kids will care more about it if they're like building the scene in history. You know, like the big thing is the passive sort of versus active is that I like if you're gonna read or watch, there's sort of better environments than Minecraft, and I would rather you not just reading or watch. I'd rather you be doing something to process the information rather than just talk to NPCs. So.
Well, thanks, Jeff, for saying that Minecraft is not good for everything. So this actually is, I just want to invite us to do a bigger reflection talk. I think Chris mentioned this and I mentioned this, is that when you love something, we believe everybody loves it. And so that's the idea. And so like Minecraft definitely has a lot of attractiveness to a lot of people, right? We try to make it into anything. But also, I think as a psychologist, and Chad, we can think about it. There are so many different things. Many years, we started the show, we had a science fiction, website. Remember those things? We had a lot of different things attract different people. I just want to invite you guys to reflect a little bit when Chris was asking who is attracted to this, but really more of overview of today. With AI, with there's so many tools, so many possibilities, so many, different things. How do we actually, as schools, take care of the interest of each and every individual student and their passion? I'm 100% sure probably no matter how many kids you've got, you cannot get 100% into Minecraft. I am sure, 100% sure. But, I don't have data to support that, but I can imagine that. But I just want to really reflect on this. Kobe and Chad and Jeff, you guys have done this for so many years. Have you ever thought about how schools should operate, in the future?
Yeah, it's a great question. And we are passionate and we all love Minecraft. But at the same time, I think one of the beauties of being in academia, we're not trying to sell anything. We can be very open about the problems we face, the struggles, the lessons we've learned, conditions under which this won't work for certain kids, and that's in our publications, we're very, open about what are the problems with Minecraft. For example, the physics in Minecraft is really poor. It's not a good simulation of the natural world, water flow, gravity. There are a lot of problems. So we have to be aware of negative transfer from Minecraft into other areas. And yeah, there certainly will see signs of kids who are becoming more disengaged with time, and we talk to them and we ask, would you like to go and do, shift to a different activity here at the community center for the remaining time? We have some attrition, so I think that, I guess the goal of meeting the needs of 100% of the kids is certainly not a feasible one. I think what we saw was there's this massive, huge community already interested in this. How can we leverage that really expansive interest in the game and shift that a little bit to STEM? And so that's kind of where we've come from. And the kids who come in with less experience, we have special. We work with them one-on-one. We show them WASD, which is the keyboard combination for moving, which most kids already know, but some aren't good at it. So we do a lot to onboard them. And it doesn't always work, but it will work too for a lot. I can't remember if I answered your question, but I did want to just mention real quick, Jeff's collaboration with the Fisk Planetarium has been a key part of this project. They did a whole Minecraft-based planetarium show that's been downloaded in 250 countries. So it is one way that we've been able to get these what if questions out there and leverage kids want to go to the show because it's Minecraft-based. So that's been exciting to pursue angles like that.
We just have a couple of minutes left before we need to introduce the next show, and I'll do that. Does anyone have some final comments or a final question or anything they'd like to get at? Chris? So I will ask the final question then. I've got one sitting here. You've been doing this 7 years. Is there any longitudinal data that you've been collecting or could be collecting, or you're going to write what will be your next NSF grant related to longitudinal data? And I imagine it's a yes answer because Jeff's laughing hysterically. So Jeff, you have a reply there.
So we just started a grant where we're looking at interest triggers automated by the system. And part of the challenge with that is that we've done very much a design thinking kind of approach to this, where we develop the system like you do software, right? And where you have users. And so you change this and you change that and you change this. And it's really good because it gets better all along the way. But what that makes really hard is having consistent data collection the whole way, because the whole interface is changing all the time. So we have some consistent stuff like total numbers of participation in kids, and our learning outcomes have gone way up because we've been changing the thing a lot. That's been great. But it does make longitudinal a little hard to do. I'm kind of the key on that lately because I'm the guy that dates back far enough on translating. Oh yeah, that's why that was like that kinds of questions. So that's why I was laughing.
Kobe, you're laughing too. You have a comment on that?
No, I've just been seeing little bits of it lately because I've been partially responsible for a couple of screw ups of the data collection. A couple errors on my part.
At least you owned up to it. Right?
It's been really gratifying with our collaboration with the Urbana Neighborhood Connection Center to see there are kids who will come back. So we've even had a couple of kids that have done it 3 years in a row, even though we expand things, but there's still a lot of overlap because we start from the beginning each time, but they get to see the new version. And so a small subset of kids we've been able to talk to and see their interest kind of blossom. And but it is really challenging to do longitudinal in the informal space. It's a major challenge.
I will, Chad, that does remind me. So Emmy, one of the people that became one of our developers, actually took our camps at the Fab Lab way back in the day. So and this is 15 years ago level of so I've definitely known kids that I met through community engagement efforts at U of I that have come up over the years and become either go to college at University of Illinois or intern for the Fab Lab or things like that. It's a very small sample and it's nothing we've researched, but yeah, we can anecdotally definitely name kids that this has really propelled them.
Well, unfortunately, this great show, the champagne show, we should be toasting with champagne. And as I said earlier, it's all Wisconsin, Illinois, Midwest people here today. So that is great. Those of you listening or watching might want to go to the blog post on this session, episode 192, because there's a number of links that you could explore. And the contact information. Sorry, Jeff and Chad, I put your emails in there. You'll be contacted me by a few folks. And so you can access them that way. They have great information at their personal homepages you could check out as well. Again, give us a round of applause. Really nice show and really interesting. Thank you, Kobe. Thank you, Chad. And thank you, Jeff.
Thank you for this opportunity too.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
I'm going to go on to the next show, and it'll be episode 193. We're going to have kids and robots. Back at our 4-year anniversary show, we had Dr. Lin on the episode talking about her son, who is in robotics competition. They won the robotics competition in Texas, and we're headed to a world competition in April. So we don't know what the results were from that world competition, but these 6th to 8th graders are going to come on the show and talk about the results and what they're doing with robots. So please come in 2 weeks. We're not going to have a show next week. We're going to take a week off to kind of reflect on our past semester of grading and researching and whatnot. But we'll be back in 2 weeks, again at noon Eastern time. So please come in with us and enjoy us on that day on May 25th.